So it's time to do the review for the Saturday game, and this is despite the fact that the big news coming out of today is that 2 more games is going to be postponed tomorrow because of positive COVID tests, and that, you know, it's definitely unraveling right now with the way that there's now more and more games being postponed, and that the MLS is kind of almost in the same situation as what the NFL is right now, where they also have a lot of games that's been postponed because of positive COVID tests, and that, you know, the only thing that I'm really hope that this is the situation is that eventually things are going to calm down a little bit, and that it doesn't get to a point where it really unravels, and it's getting to a point where the league might have to make a decision of either decide to once again suspend the season, or the fact that this season is pretty much off for naught and they're going to cancel this season. But either way, let us actually get into these free games, and we start off the first one between Inter Miami versus the Houston Dynamo, and for the first time ever, Inter Miami actually have a winning streak, as they were able to win 1-0 against the Dynamo to get them back-to-back wins for the first time in franchise history. Now, in the first half, there was really not much that happened early in this game, and the only thing that was very notable is the fact that the mic seems to pick up a lot of the raindrop sound. It was pouring in this game for the first 30 minutes, and I'm kind of not surprised. The fact that Twitter once again is having this incompetent issue with the fact that the microphone quality is absolutely awful, and that you can literally hear like the rain droplets sound so loud that it just kind of ruins the match in general. I mean, again, this is Twitter, and I told you how that not only the fact that the commentating for Twitter is just absolutely awful, but just the basics setup, like microphone quality or just the game quality in general is just absolutely horrendous. But I guess this is also kind of the MLS gods trying to punish us by saying, well, you know, you got away with not have to deal with this twice this week because one of the game got postponed, but now we're going to punish you even more by having this annoying kind of quality like what we just had to deal with, at least for the first 30 minutes of this game. Now, in the 13th minute, we finally had our first real chance of the game when Higuain strikes it from about 21 yards out, but it just went wide off the net. Memo Rodriguez had a deflected shot that just went wide off the goal, as that was really the first big opportunity for the Dynamo, before Maric had to deny Lewis Morgan from close range, and then this is when the game kind of started to become a little bit end-to-end. And I thought throughout this game, the Dynamo were trying to do the perfect tactics of what road team usually do in MLS, which is they're going to try to sit back and try to counter against the home team. And I thought that was a decent tactics to do, considering the fact that Inter Miami is not a team that do well with possession, and they're also like the Dynamo where they love to try to go on the transition. Well, if you allow them to have all the ball, they're not going to have the room to really just go on the transition, and they're basically going to force to trying to break down a Dynamo team that was trying to bunker and look to trying to go the other way on the counterattack. Now, in the 31st minute, as I was saying about the fact that we only had to deal 30 minutes where we hear raindrop being picked up in the mic, well, in the 31st minute, the game was delayed because of lightning in the area, and the game didn't restart it until an hour later, and by then, fortunately, it was not raining anymore, and we don't have to hear raindrop that is being picked up in the microphone, which is pretty much a relief for everybody. Maric then robbed Higuain in the 39th minute as Miami almost had a chance to get the opening goal, but we had to halftime 0-0 between the Dynamo and Inter Miami. Now in the second half, once again, Maric was able to rob Higuain, although this time I feel like Higuain should have scored this one, and that the Dynamo really got away with this one because they literally decided to leave Higuain wide open in the box, and fortunately it seemed like Higuain is still trying to find his way in MLS and still trying to search for his finishing. I mean, I know he scored a wonderful free kick goal in the last game to win the game for Miami, but for the most part, his finishing still needs a little work on that, and that he probably could have put this one into the back of the net if his finishing was much better, because he was just left wide open in the box from 12 yards out. Now, eventually, Miami did get the opening goal, and it was Lewis Morgan that scores the opening goal from the spot, and this was after Struna basically did an NFL-style tackle on LGP on to the ground and into the penalty box. And, you know, for Struna, that is definitely a textbook tackle if he was playing in the NFL, but unfortunately, you're not playing in the NFL, Kiki Struna. You're playing in the MLS, where you're not allowed to just take a guy down, basically wrap around them and just bring them down in the box. And in many ways, that was a textbook sign of a penalty that is going to be given to Inter Miami, which, as I said, Lewis Morgan was able to put away to make it 1-0 in favor of Miami. In some way, I kind of wish Higuain would have took this, because it will see whether or not if Higuain can redeem himself after what happened a couple of games ago, or what happened in his debut where he basically blazed the penalty kick over the bar, or the fact that we might once again have a meme quality again if he decided to once again blaze the ball over the net. But I guess Inter Miami was taking no chances, and they decided to give it to the guy that is pretty much their most consistent goal scorer this season in Lewis Morgan. Now, Morgan had another chance to score and almost score his second goal when his 20-yard shot just went wide, before McCarty had to make a save on Quintero from close range. But that was really it for the Houston Dynamo. And, you know, I was expecting, as this game continued, where Inter Miami started to kind of drop back a little bit, and that they're happy to just hold on to this 1-0 lead, I thought the Dynamo would really start push forward and try to get the equalizer. But for the last 16 minutes of this game, it just doesn't seem like that is the case, and there was just no pushback whatsoever that Inter Miami had to face, and in some way they were just kind of coasting their way to get all 3 points, which, if you're Tat Ramos, that has to be very frustrating, seeing your team, you know, have a chance to get an equalizer, and yet they just have no idea in terms of going forward on the attack, and even try to potentially get an equalizer in this game. But yeah, the shots in this one, 14 shots compared to 10 that Houston has, 4 shots on goal compared to 2 that the Dynamo has, 6 shots off target compared to 5 that the Dynamo has, 4 shots that was blocked compared to 3 that the Dynamo has, and possession-wise, 56% possession compared to 44% possession that the Houston Dynamo has. And for Miami, again, it's a historic win for them as they get their first ever back-to-back win and their first ever winning streak. And for the Dynamo, it's definitely back to the drawing boards, and that their road form that has been a problem for the past couple of seasons continue in this game. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is the very controversial game between Atlanta versus the Red Bulls. Now, obviously, I know there is a lot of talk in terms of the only goal that was scored in this game, and a lot of Atlanta fans are still very pissed off about the only goal that was scored in this game by the Red Bulls, that it should have been disallowed. But we'll get to talk about that moment. Before, in the first half, and the first thing I wanted to kind of mention is that Marcelino Moreno actually made his debut in this game, and I thought he was decent in this game, and he definitely had a potential to be a very good Atlanta United player. The problem is, you can clearly see that he was not 100% fit, and I think as we get to the second half, we start to see less and less of him, and maybe that has to do with the fact that he was kind of running out of energy, and that I'm kind of surprised Stefan Glass did not decide to sub him off at halftime, knowing the fact that it looked like he ran out of energy before we even reached halftime in this game. Now, there was also 8 changes that the Red Bulls, of course, are implemented in this game, and I thought in this game Gerhard Stuber was going to take charge of his first game with the Red Bulls, but it seemed like Bradley Carnell is still the head coach for the Red Bulls. But he definitely made a lot of changes in terms of coming into this game, and hope that maybe all these changes will be affected coming into this one. But for the first half, despite the fact that it was a relatively uneven first half, Atlanta really dominated the possession, and they kind of took control of this game. And the only reason why they didn't get a goal in this first half is that there's just no final product for them, and that their best chance only came until the 38th minute when Marooney actually deflected a shot that Marooney's shot that was deflected, and then somehow it actually hits the post. But either way, we head to halftime 0-0 in this game, and in the second half, this is where we get to the controversial moment of the game, and this is where Atlanta fans are still very angry about this moment. So, in the 47th minute, Caden Clark scored his first goal in MLS, and by the way, Caden Clark, just yesterday it was announced that Minnesota decided to trade him to the Red Bulls in exchange for $75,000 general allocation money, which I thought that was a good value, especially given the fact that he's only 17 years old, and there was kind of a specific rule where the Red Bulls have to buy his rights, and that is the reason why they had to pay so much general allocation money to Minnesota just for an academy product and a 17-year-old from Minnesota. But he made instant impact in this game by scoring the opening goal and his first ever MLS goal. Although, is this actually a goal that should count because of the fact that there was a huge question of whether if there was goalkeeping interference in this play, and that, I look at it a couple of times, and I think after I look at it a couple of times, my verdict in terms of this is that I think there was no goalkeeper interference, and I think ultimately they made the right call in this decision. And before Atlanta fans just go in the comment section and start to type some angry message toward me talking about what am I even saying, here's my reason of why I don't think that's goalkeeping interference. One of the biggest reasons why that's not goalkeeping interference is that when Royer kind of was originally looked like he was interfering with the goalkeeper and the ball was kind of shoot toward him, he did try to get out of the way so that he makes sure he did not touch the ball, and that if he does touch the ball, or if he intend to try to touch the ball, then that of course is going to be an offside against the Red Bulls. But because of the fact that he intentionally tried to kind of almost back out of him and make sure the ball of course doesn't hit him, that is one of the biggest reasons why that's not goalkeeping interference or offside on that play. The second reason, and this is probably the more clear reason, is that when the shot was hit by Caden Clark, it doesn't seem like Brad Guzan had any trouble in terms of just diving to his left to try to save this one. I mean, anytime when you have goalkeeping interference score, usually goalkeeper have kind of like a late reaction because they got screened by one of their defender. But here it seemed like Brad Guzan was perfect in terms of diving his left to try to save this one. And that the other thing I will also say is that when Caden Clark struck that one, it looked like Royer was in no way, shape of actually blocking Guzan's vision. And that I think if that shot by Caden Clark was strike, and that if Royer did actually screen Guzan, or the fact that he of course made contact with Guzan as Guzan was trying to dive his left, then yeah, there is a case that of course is goalkeeping interference. But because of the fact that when Clark strikes that one and Guzan looked like he had a clear vision to see it, I think that clearly is not goalkeeping interference. And again, I think this is the right call by the referee, although the Atlanta broadcast didn't agree with me, and they kind of spent the next 6 minutes talking about that, even though I'm not quite sure that they know the rules where goalkeeping interference is only happen when you have a player that basically intentionally screened the goalkeeper, or the fact that he made contact with the goalkeeper as the goalkeeper was tried to dive to make a save. In that case, then yeah, that of course is goalkeeping interference. So the Red Bulls, as I said, they got the 1-0 lead, albeit in a very controversial way. But that definitely gave them some momentum, and that they definitely looked like they were the more controlled side or the more better side in the second half, as they really controlled this game, and partially has to do with the fact that they were winning the midfield battle. And that, in the first half, Atlanta was winning the midfield battle, and hence that's why they kind of dominate possession. In the second half, it was the opposite. It was the Red Bulls. It seemed like every time when Atlanta was trying to go forward on the attack, they just couldn't quite do it because they lose the possession in the midfield. And that Stefan Glass clearly saw that, and he decided to kind of make 4 changes in the 69th minute to kind of change things up. We also saw our first pushing and shoving incident in the 75th minute, and I think also after this controversial goal that was scored, you can definitely sense that things are definitely boiling up. And as I said, both of these teams do not like each other whatsoever, and that it was bound to happen where we're going to have a pushing and shoving, and where both of these teams are going to get to each other's faces. Although I don't think there was a yellow card that was handed out during that instant. Now, in the 84th minute, Drew Yearwood almost scored his first ever MLS goal when he hits the post from 24 yards out and almost finished the game. Before Mera actually robbed Gallagher, and originally Mera tried to come out to punch this one away, although he didn't do a good job in terms of that, and it landed straight to John Gallagher, who was trying to hit it into the empty net, but Ryan Mera does a good job to redeem himself and pull off a good save to keep this one at a 1-0 game. And, Atlanta, they were really throwing the kitchen sink, but in the end, it was not enough to get a goal in this one. As the shots in this game, 8 shots compared to 6 that the Red Bulls had, 1 shot on goal compared to 2 that the Red Bulls had. Both teams had 2 shots that was off target, 5 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that the Red Bulls had. And possession-wise, 56% possession compared to 44% possession that the Red Bulls had in this game. And again, I know Atlanta fans are going to be mad about that controversial call, but at the end of the day, I still don't feel like they deserve all 3 points or even a point out of this game, considering the fact that they only had 1 shot on goal in this game, and that 1 shot on goal didn't come until the 93rd minute, and they just looked toothless going forward on the attack, whereas the Red Bulls, they did just enough to get that controversial goal and just did enough to get all 3 points against Atlanta in this game. And we shall see whether or not if they can continue to do well. And that, by the way, once Gerhard Stuber, who I'm assuming he might be available as the head coach of, he's going to start coaching this Red Bulls team starting maybe either the next game or the game after, which is next weekend. It'll be very interesting to see how this team is going to look. But moving on, in terms of the last game of today's action, is a very boring game between Vancouver versus RSL. And don't let the score distract you. The fact that even though this turns out to be the game with the most goal out of these 3 games, for the first 75 minutes, yeah, if you were a neutral, and if you're a true MLS fan and you watched the first 75 minutes of this game without interruption, then I definitely salute you for your passion of following MLS, because that first 75 minutes was as ugly as it gets in terms of an MLS game. And it's not surprised the fact that this game turns out to be very ugly, because both of these teams has been struggling this season, and when you have 2 very bad teams go at each other, things are going to get very disjointed. And start off in the first half, not only the fact that it was a very disjointed first half, but in some way I feel like RSL made it this game being very disjointed, because they decided to kind of go with this hack-a-cap tactics. And if you're wondering what's a hack-a-cap tactics, well, basically RSL was just keep fouling Vancouver Whitecaps player, and that they would just keep getting yellow cards in some ways. But the whole point of that is just trying to make this game disjointed and just try to disrupt Vancouver, who, this is another team that when they play in a game that is kind of disjointed, or if they try to break teams down when they have the ball, they aren't able to do that, because that's not what the Whitecaps is. Now, in the 30th minute, the first real chance finally came as DeMar Krylak could not put away a 12-yard shot. And just as that happened, I kind of went out to the backyard and did a very quick walk, because, again, this was a very disjointed game, and it was really hard to watch. And then when I came back into my room to watch this game, I realized RSL scored the opening goal, and I had to kind of rewind to see when exactly they scored the first goal, and it came in the 37th minute when DeMar Krylak scored from Merrim and Chang, and this is definitely not good defending from Vancouver. I mean, just defensive lapses there for the Whitecaps is the reason why they conceded this goal, and in some way they will be also very frustrated the fact that they conceded this goal too, because up until that point I thought Vancouver were by far the better team, and RSL wasn't really creating much throughout that point, and yet they find themselves 1-0 up at that moment and 1-0 up at halftime. Now, in the second half, RSL continued to use the hack-a-caps tactics to make the game very stop and go, and that, I was really hoping Vancouver was going to score a goal, because the longer this is going to continue, the more that I know Vancouver fans are probably very frustrated with their team performance, but as a neutral coming into this game, I was also frustrated too, because my God, this game is just so boring to watch. Like, can somebody please just tell RSL to, if you're going to just hold on to a result, you don't really need to technically just do this stop and go kind of tactics. And to my best relief, Vancouver finally got the equalizer, and it came in the 71st minute when Douglas Martinez unfortunately scored an own goal. This was a beautiful delivery on the free kick from Dynamo, and that this was kind of one of those free kick where if you're a defender, and you got to be very careful when you try to hit that one away, because if you're not careful, you're going to basically hit it into your own net. And unfortunately in this sequence, this was the case where Martinez basically put a lovely loop header that goes into the back of the net. I mean, it was a good goal, but the problem is he hits it into his own net. And just like that, it was all tied up at 1 apiece. And not only the fact that Whitecaps fans are probably celebrating, I was also celebrating too, because now the game can finally open up, and it's not going to be very disjointed. And it did. RSL started to attack a little bit more after conceding that goal, but because of the fact that they started to kind of attack a little bit, that started to also open gaps for Vancouver to exploit. And in the 75th minute, Cavallini scores to make it 2-1 in favor of the Whitecaps. Putna originally made a good save on Freddie Montero, but unfortunately he didn't push that one away enough, where it just allowed a juicy rebound right to Cavallini, who was in the right place, right time to slots it into the empty net to give the Whitecaps a 2-1 lead up to that point. And after that goal, you can clearly see RSL was really start to push to try to get the equalizer. Evan Bush denied Bear from close range in the 84th minute, before Vancouver looked like they was just trying to shut down shop and hold on to this 2-1 lead, which in the end they were able to do that, despite the fact that I'm pretty sure Whitecaps fan was very very nervous, the fact that there was like 8 minutes of stoppage time, and that they kind of finally can breathe after that 8 minutes of stoppage time was over. But the shots in this game, 8 shots compared to 7 that RSL had. Both teams had 3 shots on goal, 2 shots off target compared to 3 that RSL had, 3 shots that was blocked compared to 1 that RSL had, and possession-wise, 49% possession compared to 51% possession that RSL had in this game. But either way, this was a very ugly game to see, if you not include the last 15 minutes of the game. And for Vancouver, maybe this ugly win can start up something good for them, but for RSL, yeah, this is just looking bleaker and bleaker as the game goes on. And if you lose to Vancouver, not once, but twice this season, yeah, you don't deserve to make the playoffs. Consider Vancouver has, for majority of this season, been kind of a punching bag, and the fact that they weren't able to even get a point out of this game has to be very, very frustrating. But yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it for the review of all 3 of these games. I know this review was relatively long, but I did go a little bit in depth because I did able to watch all of these games without the fact that I have to keep an eye on another one. Well, except for this one where there was a certain point where I had to watch 2 games at once, but this one I was basically able to watch it without have to worry about keeping track of another game. But tomorrow is going to be a different story, because even with those 2 games that is being postponed, I'm still going to have to deal with, at one point, have to keep an eye on 7 games that is going to be happening. And you know for a fact that I am not going to do that, and I'm just going to unfortunately have to maybe look at the highlights of some of those games before I actually do the full review, looking at the 7 games that happen tomorrow. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I, of course, will see you guys next time.